Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Our first item is the pledge, and Sheldon's going to lead us in that.
All right, if you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, are there any conflicts of interest today?
On item 5.2, I'll recuse myself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then approval of the minutes for July 16th and August 6th. And I had one amendment on the August 6th minutes on item 5.5 and 5.6. My name needs to be replaced with Andy Powell's name on the vote. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 3.4 with the changes that Andrea mentioned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and the next item, 4.1, presentation and review of the Harriman City 2025 Moderate Income Housing Plan. And is Susan Petheram here?
Madam Chair, I just received word that she is arriving late due to a previous meeting conflict. So if we could just move that item to the end of the agenda.
Perfect, okay, thank you. So we'll move on to 4.2, review and consider a conditional.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to move that to the end of the agenda.
Second.
and then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, 4.2, review and consider a conditional use permit for a new 80-foot tall wireless cell tower. And it sounds like the applicant is online. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. It's Mark Williams. Thank you for letting me view remotely. I really appreciate that. I did have the privilege of meeting you all in person a couple months ago, and I appreciate you accommodating me remote today. Thank you.
Thank you. And then looks like Michael's going to present.
And I do know, Madam Commissioner, that my colleagues Rocky Juster and Marcy Cook are in the room as well, and they may talk at some point, but just want to introduce them. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, this is an item that the commission is familiar with in that we recently reviewed a proposed amendment to the city code to regulate these wireless communication facilities. And we looked at this property as kind of like an example or a concurrent application that was tabled. So the commission has seen this item once before. This is the approximate area of the property in the city. A closer view of that property, you can see that there is a commercial area that is yet to be developed to the east of the site, and then an existing residential neighborhood further to the east. We've also have been looking at other commercial development further west and to that southwest corner of the property. As the commission is well aware, historically the city has encouraged our cellular companies at identifying locations that could be a stealth solution where the arrays are essentially screened, such as this kind of pseudo clock tower at Harriman High. We've also have done them on taller poles like at a football high school stadium and other places. But these facilities really do require essentially a line of sight as far as making them effective. And we've also have previously required that they be located on either quasi or public or quasi-public properties, which have been growing far less available as our residential and commercial properties have been developed within the city. We're just not having enough of these public sites that are eligible for siting these wireless facilities. So with that, the city did approve a recent amendment to now allow these private non-residential sites to be a potential location for a wireless communication facility. So this site is a C2 zone. It is a conditional use. It can be up to 80 feet tall. We are requiring co-locations, and there are some stealth tools that may be required if it's justified in the code. All of those standards have been attached in your packet of materials. And again, as we've talked about, any condition of approval or requirement, or even if you find a motion for denial, must be based on those standards that are attached in your packet. The applicant submitted evidence previously as showing that the site is underserved. That was one of the requirements, demonstrating that there is an unmet need. Again, this is a detailed proposal that's in your packet showing the actual location. Something that I did not address in your staff report is this proposal is at an existing commercial site, and there will be a displaced parking stall. When we looked at the Planning Commission approval for the site, it required, I believe it was 50 or 51 parking stalls. The current quantity of stalls that are present still meet that requirement. However, Blake Thomas, the Community Development Director, had reviewed the building permit that was issued for this site, and it identified, I think it was 53 stalls that were being provided. Anyway, there's some concern that maybe that in approving this site, there might be a displacement that has to be cured. But that still is subject to review, and so staff is recommending that that will be a condition of approval. So again, these are the elevations for the proposed wireless installation. As mentioned, this is definitely a balancing act, trying to balance what are the community's interests for service versus also that potential impact on the visual impacts on on properties. Is there a potential claim for having a negative monetary impact potentially? I mentioned in my staff report that I studied that issue out, and you can find studies on both sides of that issue. And then there's a statement in the Federal Telecommunication Code that talks about that if we were to rely on that type of a study, we would likely need to commission a study specific to this site to justify denial, essentially, of services at this location. We can't essentially use some other third-party study on that issue to justify that impact on this particular location. So I just am encouraging you to be cognizant of that fact if there is some concern among the Planning Commission at citing a cellular service at this location. So again, the recommendation is that for approval, making sure that we do comply with all applicable standards, and then identifying that second one, again, not addressed in your packet, as far as if there is we're going to require or recommending that the applicant provide an updated off-street parking calculation, and if it is determined that that displaced parking stall would put the property into non-compliance, then as part of this application, they would have to provide an additional parking stall to maintain that compliance. Any questions for me at this time? Obviously, the applicant is prepared to address, or I think he's planning on making a presentation to you as well, or at least going through some points of interest or concern for you. Any questions for me at this time? Okay. I'll just leave this exhibit up for reference. Okay.
Mark, did you want to go ahead and present?
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Again, I appreciate you allowing me to appear remotely, and thank you for having me when I was there last time. What I'd like to do is to talk about why we should approve this facility and this application, and concluding with that balance that Mr. Malloy just demonstrated to you. Because upon reflecting on that balance, I think you'll conclude that this site should be approved and accept the recommendation of the staff. essential elements of communications in life are used wirelessly these days. Rarely do we have a landline. And Harriman residents also want the latest in technology for video, AI, healthcare apps where you have remote health issues or remote appointments, and more. And as Mr. Malloy showed you on that one screen, and we'll show you on one other, there is unequivocally and indisputably a significant gap in coverage in that area that materially inhibits the provision of services and the deployment of newer technology going forward in the future that the residents and businesses need. And from our perspective, both Utah and federal law require approval of this site, and I'll talk about that in a while. Mr. Malloy just discussed the issue of a possible decrease in property values for consideration. As he also pointed out, there is zero evidence of that in this proceeding. You have to look at this proceeding itself. And in fact, in our packet that we provided, and you've seen this before, the statistics are that of 90% of single-family home buyers consider an area with cell services somewhat important or very important when buying a home. 87% of prospective home buyers identify faster mobile home connections as somewhat or very important when looking at 5G or internet. I can tell you that I know that many younger folks looking for a home or an apartment, and many folks my age also, when they go into a new home or someplace, one of the first things they check is the number of bars. That's an important requirement for renting or buying a home these days. So from that perspective, the evidence is that it's needed in this area. I'm going to talk about why this location is best to fill the gap, but it's also best because it's adjacent to, right now, undeveloped land, which will be developed, which will further buffer any of the residences to the east from the facility. It's adjacent to a gas station, restaurants, and other business services and establishments, and it will also hold 3 carriers. There's 3 major carriers now. T-Mobile is applying for this, Verizon, and AT&T. Those are important. That's an important factor that you talked about a couple of meetings ago. It was wanting the ability to co-locate on facilities. And it was important to us to be able to deliver that in this application for you. What that means also is that there will be less sites in the area because any other carriers can be directed to this site. And there will be plenty of space in there to be able to put equipment on the ground. This facility will also provide service along the highway adjacent that goes southeast and northwest. Roads around there, which are heavy traffic areas, and I think at least in one of the meetings that I had the privilege of hearing before you, one or more commissioners indicated that they have experienced a drop call or bad service, and there have been apparently resident complaints. This application, as the staff report notes, meets all the code requirements. It will meet the conditions if imposed. And without this site, the service in the area will be graded further. And there is no other location which will provide the service. And you may also recall that Mr. Schuster indicated in a previous meeting that T-Mobile has been working on finding a site for this place, for this area for a long time. And T-Mobile already has a contract for this site. It is part of a commercial project on a small piece of land, which probably has no other use, but will serve a lot of folks in that area. Now, one of the things that's discussed in the report is the stumping. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We propose painting it or something like that would not work. And I'll explain about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But by approving this application, you're not creating a precedent, if you will, for future facilities that need to be this way, because the way the code is written, by the way, we appreciated the ability to work collaboratively with airmen on the code. Each facility needs to be judged and passed upon its own facts and circumstances, which is what the commission does, what the staff does, and what the commission does. And so you can approve, and that's why the way it's written is that it can be certain aspects of technology or stealthing, including but not limited to. And the reason for that is because A, it gives you the ability to work with those criteria, and I'll walk through those in a couple of minutes. But also, we don't know what comes up in the future, and we'll allow you to have that flexibility going forward. So then you should approve this facility because it meets the code requirements. It also meets at least 6 of the 8 stealthing requirements that are in the code, which you have, and which again is not exclusive, and it's not inclusive in the sense that you have to comply with each one of these. And these are found in section 10-35-7, sub B, sub 1. And I'm not going to read them verbatim, but the items are B, C, D, F, G, and H. So 6 of them. And they include, matching the colors of the facilities. And you see right there on the facility itself will match the colors so that they will be as least obtrusive as possible. We'll make sure that the cables are inside the pole or the conduit is minimized and painted so that it's not obtrusive. It will paint the color of the sky as the code notes. We'll have paint of durable quality so that it doesn't look, I'll use the word shabby over a period of time, and it will be filled with weather-resistant materials. So as planned, this particular freestanding facility, which is allowed under the code, already will comply with a number of these requirements. You're also familiar, folks, with Utah section 10-9A-507, which discusses the presence of mitigating factors to support the conclusion that the commission should approve this facility. And those are, again, it's a smaller use of property. As Mr. Malloy noted, it's in a C2 property next to adjacent undeveloped commercial land, which at some point will be developed. And there are other businesses in the area. And while there are residential areas, units in the area, it's important for them to get service, and that's where that balance that you talked about comes in, and I'll talk about it in a moment. It will hold up to 3 carriers, which is another mitigating factor. Another mitigating factor is our original application some time ago wanted a 100-foot facility. And in working through the code with the staff and you all and the city council, we agree that you should limit it to 80. So we mitigated that, the height, but yet it allows service to the roads, to the RLS Academy, the University of Utah and SLCC campuses nearby, businesses and residents in the area. So it's a needed service in a high traffic area, and it will resolve the complaints about service. These steps, among all the ones we've discussed, mitigate any detrimental effects while permitting the site to be in compliance with both the code, Utah law, and federal law. Now, no additional stealthing should be required. I just went through some of the reasons why from the actual code. But let's pretend that you did a flagpole here. You took the array away there. What that would limit, it would limit the size of the canister, and it wouldn't be able to have future technological attachments on it or behind it, like 5G or advanced 5G or 6G going forward, because it wouldn't be any room in the pole. That would also be somewhat obtrusive or noticeable. costs also of doing in this particular area of stealthing facility would be significant and therefore technically not able to be accomplished. And it just wouldn't make sense to have the facility. And that would be a further detriment to the service in the area where a significant gap already exists. The proposed facility really strikes a balance, and I like that little balancing of slide Mr. Roy had up. It provides service where it is desperately needed because there's a significant gap in a traffic area. Most of the elements of the stealthing are met, or many of them. It allows a co-location of 2 more carriers, and it reduces the number of facilities that are out there. As the staff report notes, if it's not approved as proposed, you may well see more facilities sought to be built in the area. And Mr. Malloy, I'd like to just go through just a few of the slides, the PowerPoint. Would you like me to share, or do you want to run through them? I have the page numbers.
Our communications team would probably need to manage that. Do you want to coordinate that with him, Mitch?
Or you want me to share? Can you see this PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see that now.
You can?
Yeah. Well, we can see your desktop.
Top, yeah.
Oh, you don't see the PowerPoint? How about that?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. As I indicated, and it's been in your plan, we walked through this before. One of the priorities of the Harriman City General Plan was to bring economic development opportunities and to be flexible to respond to shifting trends, needs, and impacts. And allowing this facility will allow the creation and location of smaller business spaces. People can work from home, opportunities for local businesses, those that may develop that undeveloped site, and it will allow Harriman to attract and diversify the types of businesses and employment opportunities in the city, and support opportunities for entrepreneur spaces. And start us by encouraging live-work units in mixed-use areas, which is the area that you have. It notes that there needs more fiber, and fiber will go to this facility because it needs to communicate, and that's going to be an important element. As I indicated previously, there is 98% of adults own a cell phone, and most American adults and most children are wireless only, and they use smartphones, which is advanced technology. The use of this traffic of data on wireless facilities is increasing exponentially. I went through this before. About 87% of prospective home buyers identify fast and mobile home service as important, and that's the citation to that survey. So Mr. Malloy went through this particular slide. Here's the self-designs, and this is why I said they're not always more appealing. This is a pine tree. If you can imagine a pine tree in this particular area, I think you would agree that it's not suitable for that area. These are the obelisks that I talked about. They 96 regulates the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless facilities. And it notes that a local jurisdiction can in fact regulate it, but there are certain things that must be considered. And one of them is that there can't be a prohibition or act effective prohibiting the provision of wireless services. And in this instance, the evidence demonstrates that if it's not approved, that will occur. You have in your packet this whole thing, so I'm happy to walk through it, but I want to respect your time. And I want to get to the, talk about that. We've seen the facility right here. That's where the location will be. Mr. Malloy went through that. He went through these as well. What I want to get to is, here is the existing service right now. The yellow area is where there's a significant gap in service. And this is a significant amount of area. You have the Zions Bank Stadium, the corridor, and businesses and residences in this area. Yet, when we have the facility, it's going to be built. And all of those areas of high density, like the stadium where people want to have video, the campuses along this throughway will be able to be served, which is important. As I indicated, it does promote the goals of the comprehensive plan, and by protecting and promoting public health, safety, and welfare, and ensuring that residents can always connect with emergency 911 healthcare services, which is really the way that people do that these days. Allowing the deployment of high-speed internet technology to drive economic growth, and improving property values by attracting new residents with improved connectivity and new opportunities because of that. These are showing the photographs or post site of the facility, and you can see that you had a big steeple square area where it would be much more obtrusive than these facilities here. You're familiar with this code section, and I went through it. As you know, we can't impose a requirement that conflicts with federal law, and we've indicated that not having this facility will materially inhibit the provision of services, and having self-requirements would also make it technically infeasible for us. I've already gone through the mitigating factors here, so I won't repeat myself. Just want to thank you for the ability to present to you today, to run through some of these slides that you've already seen, but just to refresh your recollection on them. And we ask that you approve the application to best serve the residents of Harriman and to further the Harriman General Plan and comply with Utah and federal law. I really just appreciate your time, and would be pleased to answer any questions or have any further discussion. And I don't know if Mr. Schutzer or Mr. Larson want to make a comment, but that's up to you, Madam Chair, because it's your show, not mine.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any discussion?
I've got a thought, and I know we've kind of been over this, and I missed the first round of this a couple months ago, and was only involved in the second round when this is third. I think it's third, if not more. But it's pretty obvious that, we want to just, I don't know, maybe I'm a little too blunt, but just slap some paint on it, call it good. Which, yeah, there's maybe some technical issues to doing that, but slap some paint on it is what I keep hearing again and again.
Correct.
And again. So one thought I had, and this is a thought, I just wanted to bounce off council or commission. What if we were to have an artist slap the paint on there? Maybe we do 10% of the cost of construction could go towards the artist applying some paint, so we get something more interesting than just flat blue thrown on a tower. I like the idea of a tower. We need coverage. I live out in that area. I could use more coverage.
Yep.
But I'm wondering could we maybe ask for, 10% of the cost of construction go to an artist, doing something more interesting than just slapping blue on it?
I could see that, or, I mean, for me, honestly, my only issue is I prefer stealth, and I don't consider slapping paint as stealth.
Yeah, I don't either.
Infeasible to me is not cost. We're not supposed to look at cost. That's one of our charters of our board, is that we don't look at cost at all. And I didn't hear that putting on other types of stealth options makes it so that the thing doesn't work. So so stealth to me is still an option we should still try and achieve. I kind of like the idea of either your idea, Jackson, or a water tower, since that whole area is a water tower. There's a ton of water out there. And so I think it makes total sense to put it here. I think we just need to define what stealth we mean, and paint is not enough to me.
Yeah, slapping paint on it is not stealth. That's why I'm wondering if we make it an art feature instead of, if they want to use paint, I think that's an idea. Maybe we just,
I think we'd have to see what that looks like for myself, to be honest. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Not to counter, I agree. I think I would prefer some sort of a stealth over paint, but Jackson, and while I like that idea in a lot of instances, I don't think that would qualify by definition as stealth either. So I don't think that fits this project. I do like the idea, like the utility boxes having that, or but I just don't know if this instance that would be appropriate necessarily. But then to like a water tower, or we showed the display of the Harriman High School one. I could see no problem with having something like that right there, and it just saying Harriman City on top. Or, I mean, my goodness, it's in a commercial area. Maybe you put signage up on it. I don't know, depending on if it qualifies for the signage rules, or I don't know. There's plenty of options, I feel like, for stealth other than what was shown. But I do agree, we definitely need this here. Correct. I had a conversation with a police officer regarding this area, and he was very clear that this is an troubled area with communication there.
I get calls dropped all the time.
And I drive it every day, so I agree. Again, not an issue with location.
Location's great.
Stealth,
Size is
to me,
great.
I think still needs to
Stealth
be
would
addressed.
Awesome. We need stealth to go with it.
Correct.
Paint is not stealth.
Yeah, and
So I'm wondering if we make it an art feature.
Well, is that, the water tower, the things like that, is that conducive to ultimately having 3 arrays on it?
Yeah, I guess no was the answer.
okay.
I don't want to just jump in on something, Commissioner. This is your
Ask.
proceeding, not mine. I don't want to just jump in.
We're not bartering,
without permission.
right? We're not bartering, right? Like, this is us talking as
Yeah,
a
correct.
commission.
Yeah.
So,
Well, because I'm like with Jackson, is it stealth, or it's like I would prefer making it an intentional feature than trying to hide it, because it's like the thing's 80 feet tall. Do we just use what it is and not try to make it look like a fake tree? It's like make it a feature instead of something that looks fake.
Maybe it's, like I said, 10% of construction cost goes to an artist, and the artist does the paint.
I like your idea, honestly. I just think I would want to see it before I have a lot of different opinions on art, and so since it's so
Everybody
large,
has an opinion on art.
and that
Everybody
to
has
me
an
makes me
opinion
a
on
tad nervous. I really like personally more of like the ones we've done around the schools, or I know Bluffdale has a killer water feature. Like it looks like a water tower, and I think it looks really cool.
Yeah.
And so I like that. So that's kind of where I think we just need to
But I
evolve
don't
this to.
disagree. He's just been very, again and again and again, mentioned the fact that they don't want to do it. So maybe there's an in-between or something where we, get something else out of it.
But I don't feel like we're proving that it's infeasible. The whole point of our code is infeasible, like it literally can't be done. And I'm hearing it can be done, it's expensive, that's what I heard.
It's a cost, yeah.
But that's not what we put on percentages on requirements on everything, and that all has costs. So I don't think we can equate that.
Back to my comment, I don't think it's conducive to having multiple arrays, and that's the economic value is in having more than one array.
But we don't know that there will be more. I know we say
The ability to have them, yeah.
they're not constructing the arrays day one. All of them arrayed.
Well, not all at once, I don't know, guys. I'm not that opposed to paint. I do like the idea of breaking it up, maybe. I'm not saying camo, but something. But I don't mind paint.
Well, how far away from residential housing is this?
I don't know the exact distance, but remember we required the height of the pole to be equal to or less than that distance, and this does qualify with that requirement. So it meets that standard. I did want to, and it sounds like Commissioner Jacobson is keeping this in mind, the section of the code that I had cited in my staff report says the wireless facility shall be stealth unless the applicant demonstrates that a stealth design would be technically infeasible or would prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of wireless services. And then number 1, stealth elements and techniques should be used to blend the facility with the surrounding materials and colors of the support structure or make the facility appear to be something other than a wireless facility. Stealth elements include, but not limited to, the following, and then that's that list. So I really think that is the key, is it technically infeasible or would prohibit the effect of prohibiting the provision of wireless services
And
and requiring a stealth solution.
And that's why I threw out the idea of a water tower, is because that area does have a lot of water tanks because of where it's at. So I don't think we need to, I personally don't want to solve the stealth solution tonight.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like we've addressed the infeasible. Like, I could understand if they were saying, we put the Harriman watchtower look, and it physically doesn't fit the lot. And we put the water tower, and it physically doesn't fit the lot. Like, I don't feel like we've proven that yet.
Maybe the answer is this, that we could approve it if it's anything but just paint. If it's anything but paint, we could approve it. I don't know if that's, then they have to come up with stealth that's not paint.
Or we could approve it with a stealth requirement to have it come back for us to see it, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Because I think the location, everyone feels like the location is the right place.
The location is the right
I don't think
place.
we're
The height's
fighting
the right
location
place.
at all. It's just
The service is
the
what's
stealth type option. And that's where, to me, I'm comfortable I'm comfortable approving it with a stealth option, but
Yeah.
it needs to come back for us to review what that is.
And that's pretty much in our ordinance already, too.
Or we continue it and they do the same thing. Like, to me, it's like one and the same. I really have no issue, and I want to say this like 400 more times, no issue with location. It
No
is
issue
truly
with- And no
stealth.
issue with height for me.
But
Yeah,
you're
or height.
wanting an enhanced stealth. 'Cause
So
isn't-
I'm actually,
Mike, isn't
I'm actually
paint
wanting something that is
in the
stealth.
rules of
Paint is not
stealth?
stealth.
That is one of the tools, but you're not limited to
Correct.
requiring just that, right? You can require more.
But stealth, like Mike said originally, and that's what I kept looking to in the packet, is it's more than paint. And it's actually doing, it can be at a minimum, but it could also be galvanized. Like, to me, that's the same difference, galvanized versus blue. Like,
Navy gray.
You want to,
That, everybody's gonna
Go
throw
ahead, and will you please state your name?
For sure. Rock Schutzer, representing Skyway Towers. Thank you for the discussion. Maybe just a couple quick points. Thank you, commissioners, for your time tonight in this matter. two things related to what we're talking about right now. One, I think you might recall that when we started this process, and the last time we were before you, we kind of talked about the genealogy of how we got to here today with this proposed location, which started in 2018. And to remind you, we spent the first 2 years trying to figure out a co-location option at Providence Hall at the charter school. On, I believe it's an 80-foot, it might be 100-foot stealth structure there at the charter school that Verizon built. We spent 2 years trying to figure that out. That sounds like a long time. It didn't go very smoothly, and sometimes we don't exchange information really well between T-Mobile and Verizon. But ultimately, so at Providence Hall, just like you have at Harriman High School, or excuse me, not Harriman High School, but at what is the other?
Mountain Ridge? Mountain Ridge?
Not at Mountain Ridge. At Harriman. Yeah, no, at Harriman High School, yeah. So you have which Verizon also built. So you have a 4-legged tower, and I don't have the dimensions in front of me right now, but I'll bet you that those 4 legs are 20 feet apart, and then you have that structure that goes up, and then you have the mass on top that hides where the antennas are. One of the specific constraints that we have on this location, where we've leased space from the property owner, is we have a ground space that will not allow that kind of footprint, where we're occupying a parking space, which Mr. Malloy referred to. We can't physically get a mass type structure with 4 legs, even 3 legs within that small space. So that's a constraint that we have. And that parcel is, it's fully developed. We were trying our best to not take up a parking space, but we're also trying to accommodate for future co-location. So just 2 comments. There's many parts of your city that need additional facilities. I was talking to a resident at the start of this meeting about service, and I appreciate the acknowledgement that the site is, we're not arguing about whether the site's needed or not, but just noting that at Harriman High School and at Providence Hall, those 2 stealth applications that have been approved and built, there's no additional tenants. And I would venture to get, well, from a T-Mobile standpoint, there's not an additional tenant at Providence Hall because we can't make that structure work for us. The other limiting factors with regards to stealth is, so it works for one carrier. I won't argue that at all. It definitely works for one carrier, but that's where your ordinance can be in conflict when you push so hard for stealth and you're also encouraging co-location. Your ordinance can be in conflict with itself because you oftentimes can't achieve co-location because of the type of stealth application. So anyway, just some thoughts related to your discussion. One quick, and this is getting a little bit technical, but every carrier has their own network puzzle that they're trying to put together, right? So every single site has its own puzzle pieces that interact with each other such that we're not dropping calls, we're handing off seamlessly from site to site. Verizon's network is going to be different than T-Mobile's, and we don't know for sure that other tenants are going to come, but what we do know is that a stealth application, especially when you're constrained like with a 4-sided structure, you can only have antennas pointing at a certain direction, the way that you can mount them. And so Verizon's orientation of their antennas might need to be different than T-Mobile's or AT&T's. And so you get constrained by like a 4-sided structure where you can't tilt an antenna to the direction that you need it. So that's getting a little bit into the weeds, but.
No, I love what you're saying, but did you guys evaluate a water tower? Because those ones, there aren't 4 structure. The 4 structures are down. The tower is your.
Yeah, we have not, I would say we have not specifically looked at a water tower in this location. I would also tell you too, though, that even at the base of the tower, there could be space for the monopole structure at the base of a water tower. But when you get up top, you've got a huge mass, right? Yeah. Which would exceed, and I don't know how this works from a land use standpoint, if we're exceeding our lease area with the structure that is in the air, if that makes sense. But again, water tower, again, perfect example. I got off at Bangerter tonight from where I live, and right before you get to, so westbound on Bangerter, there is a great water tower there. It's a Verizon building. You guys might be familiar with it. It's on the north side of Bangerter right there. Sadly, Verizon built that. It's a good stealth structure. Sadly, less than a quarter of a mile to the west as you continue going on Bangerter, you have a traditional monopole with 3 carriers on it. And you have that because that water tower cannot accommodate additional carriers. So same side of Bangerter, the Verizon water tank is just east of Redwood, and the monopole is just west of Redwood. Both of them are right up against the highway.
Yeah,
so
I know what you're talking about.
a practical example of what you're talking about. So I'm not here to argue whether or not there aren't good stealth solutions out there, because there are. I would just say that sometimes we push so hard for stealth that we get away from the ability to co-locate, and then you end up with more structures in your city. Whether or not everyone knows that a fake water tower is a cell tower or not, whatever. But if you have 3 of them right next to each other, then that could become an issue. Happy to answer any other questions that you might have, and I appreciate the time to comment.
Thank you.
I think it's just seeing options of stealth.
That's where I'm at still.
And then if the options for stealth still look terrible, then we go with the normal one.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm at.
Or maybe there's a way an artist could do something better than just slapping paint on it.
So like, I'm
Approve with stealth options, or
I almost lean on, I lean on more of a continue, just so that they could come back with, because otherwise they're gonna have to prove the stealth
Would
option.
second that.
So I'll make a motion.
Well, before you do.
Okay.
I'm not sure, gentlemen, because we're talking 1 pole that with the possibility of 3 carriers, but if it causes us to create or have the need for multiple poles, doesn't that kind of defeat what we're trying to do here?
yeah, by the height.
But if those carriers needed to be 10 feet higher, they're still gonna need another pole. All of what you're describing, I agree with, but it's stuff we can't guarantee. If
But it does
if they
sound
needed
like-
to be at 90 feet, a different carrier, Sprint needed to be at 80 feet, right where your prime real estate
We
is.
can't guarantee that, but it does sound like we can guarantee if we wrap this thing, they're not going to be able to put multiple users on it.
Well, I guess it's
I would
just
say it depends on the stealth technology.
yeah, that's what I think. Like, is there a stealth for multi-carriers?
I'm sure there is. There's multiple ways to screen things. I do it all the time.
Yeah. It just takes evaluation and thought. I mean, just so everybody knows, like, I remember when we approved the first one that was Providence Hall, and it was like, you can't do this. All we do is trees. Like they came up with the idea. It sounds like they should have made the pole a little bit different so it fit other ideas. And that's what I'm trying to say. If someone comes up with stealth technology that can make it so people can expand, it is possible. And that's our role, is trying to prove that it's not possible. It is. You just have to be creative. It's not just slap paint on a pole. It's thinking outside the box.
But even then, I think the tree in the first picture that he showed actually looked better than the blue one he showed.
I kind of agree with you, honestly.
So even the tree that he said was ugly, it still looked better than the blue pole.
I mean, for me, I think I'm leaning more towards approve with providing stealth options so they know that they can move forward.
I don't think they would be able to move forward if it's truly not possible. Like the concern on maybe it doesn't fit over the property, they still have to come back to us. So that's why I go with more of a continuation in my mind. But so I mean, we could sit and barter, or we can vote and decide.
So I'll make a motion to continue item 4.2
Without dates, so that an applicant can address the stealth options that are available or not.
I'll second that.
All right, let's do a roll call. Brody?
No.
Jackson?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Daryl?
No.
And Preston?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a 4-2 in favor. All right, the next item, we'll have public hearings. So I'll just read that policy really quick.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The purpose of the public comment policy is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form that's in the rear of the building and present it to the deputy city recorder. In general, the chair will allow an individual 3 minutes to address the commission, and a spokesperson recognized as representing a group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. And this policy applies to all public hearings. So item 5.1, review and consider a proposed amendment to the Crescent Commercial Development. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. This is an item that we had briefed the Planning Commission on previously. As you mentioned, this is a public hearing for an MDA amendment. This is the approximate location of this property. It is currently vacant. It is zone C2 commercial, and of course you can see the residential development around this property. Just to be clear, this does not include the corner parcel on Harriman Boulevard and Anthem Park Boulevard. You can see that northeast corner that is not part of this agreement. This is an amendment to an existing MDA that essentially functions as almost like a zoning overlay. It modifies the base zone, and this amendment requires a recommendation by the Planning Commission to the City Council for consideration, and ultimately they will make the final decision on this matter. There is essentially 3 key elements. They were wanting to add warehouse and wholesale, which we typically allow within a light manufacturing zone. We don't allow wholesale activities typically in our commercial zones. We're looking more for retail activities or commercial services. But there's an option, an opportunity that the developer has partnered with or is engaged with a potential partner that would bring in a number of jobs, would have a retail storefront, but they still do wholesale products. And so in order to work with that particular development proposal, that would require this modification of the MDA. Also looking at modifying some of our design standards relative to how do we treat the landscape buffer or some type of buffer between the commercial property and the residential property. As the commission is very familiar with, our standard requirement is a masonry wall between residential and commercial. But because some of the grade changes that are pretty significant on this property and just the general complexity that we often have when the residential is pre-existing before the commercial, we already have folks with rear yard fences, and then trying to coordinate the replacement of all those fences with the new precast. It's been complicated. So this development partner is requesting an alternative, essentially a landscape design that would meet that need for having a buffer between the 2 uses. And then the building design itself, they would like to use some of those standards we've already established in the Automall Special District. So we received this material after we had published the packet. Again, this is just a concept. It's not really necessarily a specific element of what is being proposed to be amended, although the council has periodically attach these types of illustrations to an MDA just to clarify the agreement or the intent of these agreements. So this is the concept proposal, and you can see that this does not propose to develop the whole site in this initial phase. This is just the furthest east portion. So north is to the left of the screen here on this exhibit, and then the east is to the top. And then here is that cross section of how they would treat the landscape buffers between the pavement that goes around the building. You can see for just emergency vehicle access, there is a circular driveway there on the north side of the building between the proposed development and the existing residential development. But you can see these cross sections, and this is an illustration that they are contemplating for that mitigation. As mentioned in the packet, we didn't have those exhibits when the packet was published, and so I had written this condition of just saying we recommend approval of those amendments with the following condition: that the applicant would prepare an exhibit for City Council review that illustrates the design of an alternative buffer, landscape detail, so forth. So they've provided that now, but that was the exhibit that was in your packet at the time, or the recommendation. So again, this is a public hearing. The applicant is here to be able to answer any of your questions as well. Do you have any questions for staff at this time? Okay. Thank you.
Does the applicant have anything to present?
Hi, good evening. I'm Julie Smith, and this is Braden Hansen, and we work with the applicant, Larry Myler. This was originally approved clear back in November of 2022. It's a 15.5-acre site, and as you saw, it's an awkward site and a hard site to develop. We currently have a locally owned retail business that is looking to relocate their operations to this site, but in order to relocate to this site, they're also requiring that we add warehouse space and light manufacturing and shipping. So they would do retail, wholesale, and light manufacturing, and then shipping. And so that's why the request to amend our MDA to allow that. And then we're also looking for you to consider in the zone that we're required to have the masonry fence, and consider a berm with increased landscaping on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Oh. Okay, and then discussion?
Oh, yeah, isn't it?
Oh, do you want to should we do the public hearing? Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and open the public hearing.
Do you need to read a motion?
Do we need a motion? Okay. So the public hearing's open if you want to come forward and state your name.
My name is Sonny Mortensen. I live on Iron King, just immediately behind this property. And just by way of I guess, communication, there are an additional 5 residents that have asked, that feel like this is important, that couldn't make it tonight, that asked if we would just express our sincere concerns of safety of the removal of the soil. You are so aware of this, and Mr. Myler is aware of this, and a concern of mistrust that it may not be done safely. My background is in, I went to school for geographic information systems and had to work at the mines and MSHA and whatnot. And I hope that we understand the risk of actually moving this soil. As far as the development goes, cool. Who cares what's behind there? Nobody's going to be happy with whatever we put back there. I think this looks okay. So not at all concerned about the land use. However, the fact that in the past, when we put in utilities right up on 126 there, I think it was a couple, 3-4 years ago, we put in fiber optic, I think, to go to the schools. And the dust suppression was not done well. And I just state that because my wife took videos of the water truck doing a really poor job and the dust all over the place. And we are just freaking out, super concerned. Now, I'm not in land development or anything like that. I'm now an insurance guy, and all I do is help people to avoid risk. And I think there is a very, very real concern that the city would be liable for the dirt not being removed properly, this bad soil. There's case law, there's ChatGPT helped me with all sorts of stuff, just to understand, like, is this even a real issue? Could this really come back to the city? And I do feel like from your perspective, you're just supposed to say, is this good for the city? Who cares about cost? And I appreciate that. But man, I just really, really, really am concerned. And that's what I hear from my neighbors. We are so scared of inhaling lead and arsenic. And you've seen this. And anyway, the last thing is a little bit of a concern with the fact that the proposal is that the city council kind of take the next step and approve it. I'm just going back like one slide. I took a little screenshot so I could access it, but I was surprised that we would bypass the Planning and Zoning Commission and allow the city council to review the illustration and design. Anyway, I think I'm done. I just really kind of beg you to consider and make sure that in that MDA that everything is spelled out so incredibly that it can't come back on the city, and that we would have some concrete guidelines for it to be done properly. I think I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going? My name's Andrew Lawrence. So yeah, I'm Sonny's neighbor, right next to him on Iron King Drive, and we kind of talked about. He kind of talked about it, but yeah. So just in case anybody doesn't know, all of this soil is soil that was brought here by developers because it's contaminated soil. So it's not just whatever soil. It's got high levels of lead, high levels of arsenic, kind of thing. So yeah, and just kind of to recap what we had talked about. So at one point there was, they tried to rezone it to residential, and that didn't go through. And at that point they were gonna take all the soil and put it somewhere else or whatever. But then it became commercial, and then there was talk of like, okay, well now we can just put it right on top of this capped soil. And it was this thing, so the representative that they had last time said that, so I think is their attorney Baird, stated that the contaminated soil limits were set by experts and the standards were agreed upon by the EPA and the city. There was no requirement to lower land to street level, and they may build on its existing conditions. So it was just kind of this thing of like, we're just gonna build these huge, whatever we want kind of things on top of these 15-foot soil caps, things like that. And so that was, it went from like, okay, we're gonna get the soil removed to now we're gonna have these giant structures. And then there's a lot of talk and things and some confusion as things went on of like who's responsible, is the EPA responsible, is the state responsible? And ultimately it ended up that it is the city's responsibility as it stands now. And in September, so in October, there was talk, Director Thomas explained that staff would file an environmental covenant on the property specifying the cleanup requirements. Planning Manager Spencer indicated he would investigate options for self-development options on affected properties. And so I was just wondering, like, has that been done? Have they figured out some plans, things like that? And then there was some confusion. I don't know if you guys remember, there was So at one point, so EPA had told us you need to keep the lead levels under 4,000 parts per million. And then at some point, and as far as I know, nobody knows how it got changed, but at some point it got changed in the city to 5,000. And so we had to have like this emergency meeting to bring it back down to 4,000. But of course, there are some soils in this things that's in between that range of 4,000 to 5,000. So it's this complicated mess kind of thing. So today I called the CEO called me of Black Clover, whatever they are, yeah, thank you. And he was super great and he was super supportive. And one of the things he said is, man, he agrees with me. He agrees with the citizens. We got to get rid of this soil. We got to get rid of, we're not going to build on top of anything like that. And that's a part of their agreement. And so just kind of echo what Sunny said. I really think that we should put this in the MDA. Like, I don't see any reason if the people that want to build it want to remove it and the citizens want to remove it, we don't need to try and pretend that someone else is going to, well, maybe the EPA will take care of it or maybe da-da-da-da-da. Like, let's just make it crystal clear that this is something that we want to have happen. And I know my time's up, but I just wanted to thank you guys so much for all you guys do. I know it's a thankless job. I know last time when we had this meeting in September, you guys did give a recommendation to the council, and a part of that council was to include, to remove some of that soil, and they didn't choose to accept that, and that was kind of frustrating, and I don't know if you guys are frustrated, but I was frustrated for you. But I hope it doesn't deter you guys to do the right thing and make that recommendation again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, if there are no more comments, we'll go ahead and close. Oh, come ahead.
Okay, so my name is Brenda Mortensen. Man, it's been a little bit since I've been here. I was here last time Larry was proposing something, and I do like this a lot better than what he proposed last time. The big concern that I have is really just the health and safety of the people. You know, when we moved in, they told us it was a storage area for snow plows and salt and things like that, and that's what was going to be put on this property. Removing this dirt has huge health implications. You know, last week we celebrated, or not celebrated, but we remembered 9/11. There are over 20,000 cases of cancer caused because of that cloud of dust from 9/11. So you're potentially risking the health of so many people. And nowadays, it is not hard for us to test if this is being done correctly. Like my husband said, I have video. I still have it on my phone when the city did the fiber optics. It was not done correctly. There was dust all over the place. The water truck went right around where they were actually digging and didn't even spray where the digging was happening. We can use our air conditioning filters. We can use simple air filtration systems, test the HEPA filter, test the water. There's plenty of labs in the Salt Lake Valley that we as residents can take those to, and they will test it and let us know if it's being done correctly. And like my husband said, in managing risk, if it's not being done correctly, the city is liable to be sued by tons and tons of residents. So I just urge you to really think about that and make sure that as you go forward on these things, that if we are going to do this, you have everything explicitly written out in that MDA. Because if it's not, the developer can do whatever they want. And I do have some mistrust issues with the developer because of how some of the things were handled a few years ago when he was trying to build 3 or 4-story houses on there. So I do have some concerns that if it's not spelled out, that there will be things that we as residents in Harriman do not want to have happen. So thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Do we need a motion?
I'll make a motion for that.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All
All in
right.
favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll go ahead and have a discussion.
I think Blake shared some great information. The soil was, of course, one of my top questions as well. Can you speak to some of those?
So yeah, I was trying to take some mental notes over there. Very good comments, very all true. The site was originally zoned residential several years ago. The city has had the property for a long time. We changed the zone to commercial. It was going to be a public works yard. I think originally it was going to be a park or something way back in the day with Tuscany. It was their soil repository. They were going to remove the soil and developers were going to build a park or something. But so it was a public works yard for a long time. And then the city was getting quotes. We were trying to get brownfield funding to clean it up. It didn't qualify for a brownfield because the soil had been moved there for development. So we changed it to zoning, or changed the zoning to commercial, and couldn't move the soil because it was too expensive after we couldn't get the federal funding. So then it became part of the deal with the Auto Mall, and Harriman 73 Partners acquired the property. And it was a discounted price for the property because of the contaminated soil. And we always knew it needed to be cleaned up. There was a study done in the late 90s. It was by the EPA. It was a record of decision that was drafted and written up and signed off and adopted by the city. The decision identified that area, all of Butterfield Creek, as operable Unit 3. Operable Unit 3 became the jurisdiction of Harriman. Some areas were cleaned up if the property owners allowed the EPA in to clean that up. Some areas were not cleaned up. And then at that point, there were recommendations for levels of contaminants that could be allowed for different types of uses. And so the city adopted code at that time. It was mid 2000s, early 2000s. It's before my time and Adam's time, I think. And so those standards were in place, and the city was always responsible for cleaning up any soils in the operable Unit 3. And the city usually relies on the developer to clean those soils up with city oversight. And then the city has to report every several years to the EPA about what's been done. So this site does have elevated levels. Some of the stuff that I brought up in the meeting was as the soil was cleaned up from these other areas, as it was picked up with other soil that had lower concentrations. So as that was carried over to this site, it was mixed, and then they spread it and they compacted it and capped it. And so every time it moves and gets mixed with other soils, the contamination concentration drops. We have some documents that show elevated levels around on the site, but they don't they don't take the samples very frequently, like every 200 feet or something like that. So we know there's spots in between that could be less, could be more. So our plan is, and it's in our ordinance of how to do this, in our engineering standards, there needs to be a soil assessment plan done for the development where they will come in with an environmental consultant. They will assess the soil. They will likely do a grid, and it's typically 100 feet or 75 feet grid, and they'll go, they have a gun, it's called an XRF. They shoot it at the soil and it tells them the concentration levels of the contaminant. And they'll shoot the surface, they'll dig down usually 6 inches, shoot it again, dig down until they get to a point where they don't run into contamination anymore. This site's a little different because it's been put in from other areas, so they may have to go really deep. The current levels that are allowable at this site for contamination, I think, are 4,000 parts per million for the lead, and that's the one that we've seen the most of. The arsenic hasn't been as prevalent. And so if they run into soil levels that are 3,900, they can cap that. But if they run into anything that's 4,000 or higher, they will have to remove that from the site. And they can't put it anywhere else on the site. It will have to be hauled off to a facility that'll accept it. Right now, we're only aware of 2 facilities that will accept the contaminated soils. While all this work is happening, they will be required, there will be a oversight. We have a consultant that will come and have oversight on the project and watch the cleanup. The one thing that was brought up with the fiber optics project, that was through a land disturbance permit. I think it snuck through because it wasn't a big development. It wasn't caught. They usually do their work right out right on the back of sidewalk. And whoever was reviewing that permit didn't see that that was in that contaminated area. So that one was likely an outlier, I guess. Larger developments, so when the Miller Crossing subdivision, which is where most of the people reside in, when that project brought the soil over and put it on top of the Tuscany repository, we had the oversight. And so our consultant was there. They had air monitoring stations. They had a backpack. Someone was on site the whole time. They were monitoring the trucks that left the site had to be washed down to leave the site. And when they came in, they watered everything down, kept the dust down. So there will be oversight on this one, and the ordinance is there. The city is responsible for the cleanup, and so we take responsibility as being the oversight for the cleanup. And at the end of, so they do the assessment, and then they have a cleanup plan, and then they execute the cleanup plan, and at the very end, there's a summary of what happened. And so all those documents will be on file for anyone to review, to look at, and they'll be reviewed by our staff, and our consultant will also review them. So hopefully that answers your questions. I bounced around a little bit. I should have had a little bit more organized thoughts, but that's the cleanup process we're anticipating.
So you're saying that, sorry, when this consultant will be on site the entire time that any earthwork is being done?
They'll either be on site or have an air monitoring station that they'll be monitoring nearby.
And this has happened multiple times at other locations, not just this repository.
That's correct.
And this,
Sorry, Heather, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, it's good. I just.
this program of testing, that all happens before construction.
The sampling, the assessment plan, that's all prior to putting a shovel in the ground, yes.
And this one will have to be pretty deep, like you said, because, I mean, just so everybody's aware, that hill was not that high before where your homes all came. I remember those days. When Tuscany put the first dirt there, it wasn't as mounded as it is now. So it'll have to be quite a bit of digging just to do that study.
To do the study and, yeah, the assessment. I know a lot of it's been done already, but yeah, it'll be built off of those existing studies, and they'll have to get new data for the analysis.
And to clarify, this is all codified requirement, whether it's in the MDA or not.
Yeah. So I think the MDA has a statement in it that they have to follow all city code and
Right.
standards unless stated otherwise. And so, yeah, this would fall underneath the existing city code.
I was wondering, because in the MDA, it does say that it goes back to October 12th, 2022 code.
This, like Blake said, this code for the soil mitigation has been since before I worked with the city,
Okay.
which was 2002.
Sounds good. I just
So-
wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be excluded because it was done a month later or something.
When that EPA record of decision came out, one of the requirements was that the city had to adopt standards. And so, yeah, there's a booklet, I think it's on our website in the engineering development information, that talks about soil cleanup requirements, and then the ordinance has the allowable levels listed. And we have been meeting recently with the EPA. They're looking at changing their standards, and so we may have to modify, but they haven't talked about commercial. They've only talked about residential standards with us.
How does the, I guess, mitigation company remain kind of third party?
Yeah, I can say the name. We contract with them often. It's Earth Touch Engineering.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they are currently overseeing a lot of the work in Olympia and the Sorrento project that's currently being remediated off of 5600 West.
So just a question, is the city paying for them, or is the developer, how's that set up?
That's usually a cost that's included in the building permit after the work's done for the developer to pay for.
Does the EPA Is there approval needed, or do the results go to the EPA, or are they
Just in
not?
that every other year report that we submit to the EPA, they review it, but no, we have full jurisdictional control over the soil as a city.
And this, just so everybody's aware, this goes all the way up through where Butterfield Creek, like Blake said, we've done this a ton.
Yeah.
So,
The Hidden Oaks project did a massive cleanup, so that was one of our more recent massive cleanups. They cleaned the entire creek out from, 6,600 west all the way out to 7,300 west, so.
Did you have any complaints regarding that cleanup process from residents?
No, just the developer.
So they're just the developer.
It was,
So
it
no,
was
there were
expensive.
no trust issues during that project, in other words.
No, it was pretty good. We worked hand in hand with the sewer district. The sewer district deals with this a lot too, because they're always putting sewers in along the creeks, and so we've worked closely with them on this throughout all their processes too.
Does Earth Touch have a contact that the residents could call if they see issues?
I think we can work on that. We can probably get a flyer to hand out to the residents or webpage set up for it, and we could have a hotline for that. Yep.
Blake, can you also talk about liability? If there were concerns, is that something that falls solely on the city, or?
It is, and so, yeah, it's definitely a concern. That's why we hire a consultant. I don't think anybody on staff has the specialty knowledge for contaminated soils. We know enough, but we know enough to hire a professional consultant to come in and help us. And Earth Touch is resume when we were looking for someone to use. They've done a lot of work in Park City around the mine areas and things, so they've done some pretty heavy-duty stuff up there, which also had a record of decision and gave Park City the jurisdictional control over, or the institutional controls over the soil, so very similar to our situation here.
You mentioned that every other year, the city turns in a report to the EPA. Is that public knowledge? Is it
I think it's
available?
every 5 years. I might have misspoken. It's been a while since I read that, but.
But those reports are available if the citizens wanted
Yes.
to grab one and.
Yes, they are.
Have you guys, a question, in this particular situation, have you guys ever had like someone from this subdivision or something as like a representative to collect information, or maybe the hotline is sufficient if there's a way for them to bring up problems?
We're usually pretty available, so email or phone call away, but I liked the hotline idea because there are so many residents right adjacent to this. That'd be a good thing to do, just an extra set of eyes to keep the city, aware of what's going on in case there's some work going on a Saturday that we're not aware of. That.
Thank you.
thanks, Blake.
Thanks.
Okay, so further discussion?
As far as the overall site, I think,
Do we need to close the
oh yeah,
public
We
hearing?
did close it. I'm just wondering if we want to hear anything more from the developer, or
Yeah,
if
we
we're-
closed it.
We closed it. The developer could
closed.
speak if they would like.
Do you have anything that you want to add?
there you go.
Yeah, so I'm Braden Hansen. Like Julie said, I represent Larry Myler, and he couldn't be here today. Thank you guys for your comments. I do appreciate that. Like I said in our work session, we are actually going to be using the same consultant that they use because they've done so much work in Harriman, and they have such a good resume, like Blake said. And we vetted them with did our bids, so them and another one, and we felt like they had the experience to come and do it. And we'd be following all the rules, all the regulations to remove this soil. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I like the development. Soils was a concern, but it sounded like, Blake answered all my questions on that. The reports are available to the public, so you folks can take a look at them. and the monitoring will go on through the duration. So I don't know what other stumbling blocks there are.
I think that it sounds like this development is a compromise that's come from a long ways away, you know, and that there's been quite a few projects proposed previously that were not liked. I didn't hear much of any issues with this project other than the soils. I feel comfortable with the explanation Blake gave, and I think, frankly, having a project done to fix this issue is better than leaving it undeveloped, because I would say that that's just as much of a liability and risk as to not, so.
So with that.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, thank you.
I recommend approval to the City Council for item 5.1, review and consideration of the proposed amendment to Crescent Commercial Development Master Development Agreement.
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and let's do a roll call. Preston?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Brody?
Yes.
So that passes unanimously. All right, item 5.2, review and consider a recommendation to the City Council regarding amendments to Harriman City Commercial Zoning Code.
I'm just going to recuse myself for this one.
Thank you, Brody.
All right, thank you, Commission. This is an item that we did talk about a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago maybe, expanding our commercial zone uses. So why do we want to do this code? We have several properties, they're identified here on this map on the right, that kind of have some challenging topography, or for some reason, they've remained undeveloped. There's visibility, ease of access, lots of things. Even unmotivated owners, which I don't think we can do anything about, but some of these other things we can maybe address. And so another thing we see is there's kind of this gap, and you can see our M1 and M2 uses are generally way down south. We do have some technology manufacturing uses out west by Kennecott, but that land's owned by Kennecott, and they're kind of an unmotivated owner. They are protecting their mine. They're a mining company first and development company second. So that's what they tell us, and so we've had some struggles with getting uses on that. So this gap in this between the MU and the technology manufacturing zone kind of makes it hard for our home occupations to grow in Harriman without having to go way down south and kind of be in an area that has limited visibility, and then they're stuck next to maybe bigger manufacturing type industry businesses. So that's the reason why we set some goals of what we want to address with this new zone. We're calling it the Flex, the CF zone for commercial flex. We want to help loosen the bans on those properties that haven't developed and try to get them some more tools to help those develop into commercial uses. We definitely want to help out our home occupations to allow them to stay in Harriman. It's hard for us to see them grow and outgrow their home and have to move to Riverton or to Draper or somewhere to open their business because there's not an opportunity here. Address that gap that we talked about. Hopefully do some things with the design to keep the costs down. And then have a space where these tenants can collaborate. You might have a bunch of different makers making different widgets so that if they collaborate, they can make a really cool widget instead of a bunch of individual ones. I don't know. So there were 4 sections of code that were amended, and these are the sections. I'll just kind of run through each one quickly. 10-12 takes a little bit longer because it was the heftiest one, but the first one was the land use categories. We added these uses. I forgot to mention we have Kyle in the back here. He is a potential developer of one of these sites, or one of these, of using this zone and applying it to a site. And in working with him, we identified some of these other uses that aren't currently in our code. And our code says if a use isn't in there, it's not allowed. So this kind of opens up the code to a few more uses that we currently don't have addressed. One thing is the storage has historically been addressed in the warehousing. It's kind of fallen underneath that. This kind of gives it a more clear definition, and that's been needed. So. The next one is section 10-12, commercial and office zones. We added a purpose statement. It kind of goes through and hits those goals that we'd talked about. And then the uses that are allowed in the CF zone, we currently don't allow, as we heard about in Michael's presentation on the last item, is that we don't allow wholesale or warehousing in the C2 zone. This would allow wholesale and warehousing, but kind of make it more of a, I guess, a extra use to these areas. And then we have included drive up and indoor self-storage as an accessory use. So you have to have a primary use of this maker space or these tenant areas. And then if you have a site larger than 5 acres, we'll get to in a minute, then you're allowed to do some storage in this area. And then we did put a couple of restrictions that you can't have the drive-up storage units exceed the number of tenant spaces. These are items that we discussed in the work meeting when we discussed it. And drive-up storage units will be restricted to only be used by owners of lessees or primary tenant spaces. I do know that might be concerning to the users, because you might end up with a bunch of empty drive-up storage units if people don't want to pay the extra money to rent them. So I don't know if we didn't put in this, but there might be a mechanism to allow those to rent out if they don't have any space, but I don't know how to address that part. And then we always have a conditional use approval required for a certain size of development. So this one we put just over an acre at 44,000 square feet. You have to come to the Planning Commission for a conditional use. Continuing on, the development standards. This is where we were hoping to have standards that would make it look nice, but also allow them to build so that the cost isn't so much that it would be unachievable for people to move into these. So basically trying to keep things that are facing the public streets and in the public view to our brick and stone, glass, and architectural metal panels, typical with our C2 zone. But then getting back in behind, you can go to a little bit toned down architecture. Massing requires some bump outs and some character. One of the things is the signing, allowing for uniform plaque signs on the walls and logos and hours on the doors. We talked about fencing last time. We removed the chain link, so you can only have wrought iron on the gate, or a metal panel that complements the primary structure or matches it. We talked about parking being only allowed, or storefront parking can't be reserved, and then employees can park if there's gated areas in behind. And then reducing some landscaping as trucks drive through the site, so we don't have landscaping areas that make it difficult to maneuver a larger vehicle. It might be delivering or going through the area. Setbacks, I highlighted items on this that vary from the C2 zone. Everything else is what we currently have in the C2, so it kind of matches. If we took a C2 site and brought it to the commission and the council and it changed to CF, you'd almost get the same thing, except for if you had these accessory uses on these larger parcels, then you'd be able to have a minimized setback for those accessory uses, depending on the height. And then the maximum allowable lot coverage in the C2 zone is 60, and so it's proposed to be 75 in this. The major corridor sign overlay zone, we only had some minor changes in this. We just needed to add the CF zone as one of the zones that this could apply to. And then we changed the distance. We noticed that the distance between allowable signs was 200 feet. As we started looking at that was pretty close. So 500 feet is a little bit more reasonable along Mountain View Corridor. And then decrease the required acreage from 20 to 8. And then the lastly is the table of uses. So as I broke this down, this includes the uses that were in the first section that I talked about, and then also some additional uses that are currently in the, well, you can see here, there's currently, these ones on the left are ones that are not currently allowed in the C2 zone. Most of these are the ones we've added, but there's a few like wholesale and warehousing that we've taken. That's only allowed in the M1 and M2 zones right now, and we're proposing to allow that in the CF zone. And then you have the permitted uses, so those ones in the middle would be permitted in CF and C2, and then the ones on the far right are proposed to be permitted in the CF zone, but they're currently conditional use in the C2. And then this is the bullet point that I mentioned earlier is drive up and indoor self-storage for only allowed on lots that are 5 acres or more. And I kept that slide in there. That was my, should have taken that one out. So I made a sample site. I think we were kind of getting stuck on the last time we discussed this. There was a specific location we were kind of trying to apply this to. So I just took a general 5-acre piece, typical size of a 5-acre section you'd see out here, and applied what could work here. This is a sample where you have a collector and arterial, and I was applying setbacks to see if it would even fit or work. It laid out okay, but this kind of gives you a visual of what could be. You'd enter in off the street. Maybe this thing has some bad topography or something, so you have to have the access off of the local road over on the side. But there's parking in the front. There's a reception meeting space that would be available for all tenants to use. And then you have the drive-up storage units up on the top part, and you have all the flex spaces, and then since it was 5 acres, there's an indoor storage facility that with that distance off the setback, that would only be like a 2-story, like a 20-foot tall facility. So I think there was that one, and then I just had some photos with that showing maybe like the reception meeting space could be that top right photo. Your indoor storage facility could be something like the bottom right. I know that one has some drive up on it too, but it was really hard to find a picture I could steal off the internet that would let me do. So that was the one I got. And then bottom middle, that's possibly like those units 21 through 28 interior that aren't front facing. They're kind of toned down a bit. And then those drive up self-storage could be like those ones on the bottom left. So I believe this item's on for a public hearing, and be happy to answer any questions before that or after.
I had a question on the retail. Does that include like a restaurant or like a bakery or something like that?
Let's go back there. I don't think we put the restaurants in here just because we'd want them in our commercial zones. But if you wanted to include that, be happy to, I guess you could put that in your recommendation to the council. So these would be all the uses that we're proposing inside of here. Parking's hard with a restaurant, so.
I was kind of thinking, because more with the commissary where there's like food trucks and things like that, sometimes maybe like a wholesale bakery or something might be interested, but. Any questions for Blake? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
My name is Kyle Norton. I'm with my company is Aspen Lake Construction. So I'm a small contractor. Also do some development. Do mostly commercial construction. Blake, thank you for taking the time to describe this. I think this is a worthy thing for the city to consider. I've done a lot of self-storage development and management in the past in other states, but also here in the state of Utah. And I've seen small businesses, they go from being in their basement or their garage, and they're trying to take that next step. Sometimes these are people, they have an apartment but they want to be an entrepreneur. And it's hard to run a business out of your apartment. So where do they go? They often go to self-storage. Problem is, self-storage is not built to be a place for a business. It's not set up for the electricity, the plumbing, the life safety, fire sprinklers, you get that. So I've had the opportunity to manage a few sites like this in other cities and states. Orem, Utah, St. George, Utah, the Bay Area, 2 sites out there. And the business community, the entrepreneurs love this. It gives them a place to go to house their vehicles so they don't have 3 work trucks in their neighborhood right on their driveway. It allows them to have a place for employees. It's really hard to acquire and retain employees when they're in your living room. It's just hard. They don't want it, you don't want it, it's just hard. So we find a lot of people, they just love this product. There's oftentimes wait lists of people saying, hey, as soon as something opens up, please let us know, right? And we're already pushing the rents going, okay, but we don't want to push them too much because that's the thing that makes this so valuable is it gives that somebody that first rung to grab onto a place for their business outside of their home. What we find is a lot of people will start with 1 unit, and as their business grows, they go to 2 or 3 or 4 units. And even at 4 units, these units are typically about 1,000 square feet. It's still smaller than the smallest flex industrial space you can find out there. A lot of the stuff's 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet. So this allows them to grow incrementally. The benefit of having it tied to a storage facility, the classic example is the landscaping contractor. It's early spring, he goes to his supply house, he says, I want to order 20,000 lineal feet of plastic pipe to put in the ground. He doesn't put that in 1 weekend. He puts that in over time. He gets a discount for buying in bulk. He rents a 10 by 30 in addition to his flex space, puts it in there, and then by the end of the season, he's done with that and he says, hey, I don't need to rent that. I rent my flex space on a yearly basis. My inventory space, I can stop that rent, that lease month to month. And so in the slow season, the winter, he's not renting it. So this is some of the synergies that they get between these 2 uses. Those are just some, one thing that wasn't mentioned is, and I have not done this in previous places, but I want to do it here, is the clubhouse idea. This 1 unit, typically by the gate, it's typically a little bit more glass, it's a little bit more beautiful. It's got a conference room, it's got a little break room, you might put a ping pong table or a pool table in there, and this gives the facility a place to say, hey, you want to work on your SEO marketing, you want to get better at your tax strategies, we're going to have an expert come in this Friday, we're going to do a lunch and learn, come and participate, right? But it's also something for them to use, call at the end of the year and, hey, let's have a company Christmas party, right? So that's the project in a quick nutshell. But yeah, I think the big thing here is it's that first rung that allows a business owner to get out of their home, get out of their garage, and to be in a commercial space, help them grow their business. That's, I'm sorry, maybe I went over time, I apologize. Any questions that I can answer?
Let me close the public hearing and then they might have some questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Do we want to ask him some questions or?
I have one. It's just my only concern is the storage piece.
Yeah.
The true, we'll call it the true public storage like you would traditionally see. How do how do you make it so the businesses can use that storage, not it's contained with everybody's moving stuff?
Yeah, great question. The answer is you do have to have an operator who knows what they're doing. Somebody who's not familiar with real estate, they would say, I want my facility 100% full. That is not how you manage a facility. If you don't have at least a few units, let me paint a quick example. Kyle, I want to take up woodworking. I buy a table saw, I put it in my garage, and I go, what am I going to do with my mountain bikes? I'm going to store it in storage. Then let's take Jim. Jim just got laid off. He got a divorce, and his dad died, and he inherited all his dad's tools. Who needs the storage more? Kyle with the few mountain bikes, or the guy who's trying to put half of his home in storage? Well, Jim does, right? So as a manager of a facility, if I have everything rented out, I can't take advantage of a Jim coming and saying, you know what? You typically rent your 10 by 30s for $200. I don't care. I'll pay you $300. Sweet, okay. So if you're 100% full, you are missing the boat. I worked for a company at one time. They loved it when sellers said, yeah, I've been full for 10 years, because this buyer would come in and say, well, they don't know the market. They're below market. That's why they're full. Is their price too low? Oh yeah, sure. You think your project's worth $5 million because it's full? Great, we'll pay you $5 million in a heartbeat. Because the thing was worth 10, because they didn't have some vacancy to allow you to take advantage of the people on the margin, the people who really wanted it. And so your question was, how do you make sure your storage is not just full of bikes and the business owner doesn't have a space to put his landscaping sprinkler pipe? It really is up to the operator to be like, I don't want to be 100% full on any of my different sizes of storage. So that's what I would tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a random question for Blake. With the change from the 20 acres to the 8 contiguous acres for the sign, why 8 and not 5 when it seems like all the other things are 5-acre minimums?
I don't know why. I opened up my draft and that's what I had written. And so I looked back through my notes and I couldn't find anything. I'm like, there must be some reason for 8. So if you wanted to recommend 5, it wouldn't break my heart.
Okay.
I think one of the things we were trying to address at the same time was when Lifetime was coming in. We were trying, all the timing we were trying to work out, and it might have got mixed up with that. And so, but Lifetime got ahead of it, so we weren't too worried. I looked up and down Mountain View, and there aren't too many parcels that are like bigger than 5 acres.
Yeah, that's why I was, because I would assume that 5-acre, especially with all that might make more sense.
There aren't too many acres or too many parcels bigger than 5 acres that currently don't have an agreement for a sign like the Auto Mall.
Okay.
So I correct that statement, but yeah.
Most of the parcels that would fit under this, though, they're smaller than 5, right? They're more in the 2 to 3 acre size.
That's correct.
I wonder if size makes it more difficult to put something like this on.
And we only have discussed potentially 2 sites. We're not bringing any parcels to ask to apply to this zone yet. That'll be next, but just wanted to see if this would even.
Well, I think we look forward to your next plan to deal with the 2 and 3 acre sites.
Yeah.
I kind of lean on we should keep it as it is and see how it works. We've never done something like this
No,
before we open it too far.
let the market do its
Well,
thing.
I'm just talking about that signage thing, just for consistency purposes, but yeah.
I can say I like the CF zone. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
It fills, I thought your little diagram showed it perfectly, that between MU and M1, there was a gap.
There's a gap, and I failed to mention, but yeah, like buildings 31, or tenant spaces 31 through 42 and 1 through 4, they all have frontage. So you get all these storefronts too that, there's some good variation here if you're a woodworker, or if you sell clothes, or if you, I don't know, there's all these uses you can put in here. I think it does open up a good opportunity for the home occupations to move into here.
I would say this is a great example of what could go in any of these sites, because you identified about 20 of them across the city. And I happen to like Kyle's approach, and I think it would be great as one of the 20. But I think at the other 19 sites, this also applies well. So I say that 1 of 20 is great, but also for 20, it's great. So.
Cool.
Okay, anything else? Or?
Yeah, for me, I was worried about the uses for the drive-up self-storage, indoor self-storage, and vehicle and equipment rental. And more so, it's just, I'm worried about where this could be applied in some of the areas that may be a little more residential. That's where I'm worried about those certain uses and how they fit into the neighborhoods. The other things I'm totally fine with.
Well, we would have to approve the zone change, though, in those instances.
Yeah, but once the zone changes there, to Heather's point, once it's a C, once it's zoned that,
Right.
It's permitted at that point, right?
Yeah, you'd have to change it from a C2 to a CF, so.
Yeah, I'm saying if that's the concern,
Have to come
then it's when it
request a
comes to
zoning
be proposed for that zone change, we can say, no, that's our concern. We don't want to do that zone change because of that reason. But I don't want to limit this tool because we might not like it in a given area.
And to do the storage, you have to have 5 acres. So that's another thing. There aren't a lot of 5-acre parcels out there.
How many do we have?
How many 5-acre parcels?
Well, for the commercial, yeah.
That would apply to this.
Let's go back and kind of look here. Without doing like a huge rezone of like residential areas, it's
not
like
a lot, right?
Small.
2 or 3.
Like
How
less
big is
than-
the ones that are like, we're in Rosecrest that have never developed? How big are those lots?
I think that the one that's kitty corner from the Holiday Oil up there.
Yeah.
That one is, I think that's right at about 5.
Okay.
It's pretty close to that. There might be some news coming on that one soon though, so.
That was it right there, right?
There you go.
And the one that we were just talking about, so everybody's kind of gets the scale, is that,
Yeah, that's
that one right there. I don't know if I can show you, but that one. So, really, it's,
And the Black Clover project, if this, it could fall underneath this too. It could be this type of use. I think it would be an allowable building in the CF zone. They were looking at a different site before they came into this new site, and so that was kind of one of the things that started this work on this zone was speaking with them, and then they were able to move on to the Crescent piece and have a different avenue to achieve what they're trying to do.
I almost could see this driving more of our support to our C1 and C2 long-term. Like, this is where you hop, and then you eventually keep expanding.
As long
so.
as it doesn't all turn into storage. The intent of this is fabulous. I love the idea of bringing in and allowing these businesses to, start in these smaller units and then move up.
Totally agree with you, but there's also nothing stopping it from being a school or a church. So I would rather have it be that than, I would rather have some use that's for the full community than just schools. I mean, I know they're important, but we've lost, if you go look at most of those big red boxes, we claim them as commercial, but they really aren't.
Yeah.
Charter schools. Or charter schools. It's like if you really followed through with it, like the ones, that big chunk right in the middle by Rosecrest, where Black Ridge Elementary School is, those were 3 great commercial spots that are just Just schools.
These maps are so small, it's this one, right?
That's where Black Ridge is, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, to me, having more of those amenities would have been cool to have some more businesses there than squishing in a school.
Yeah.
Well, I like it. I'm ready to make a recommendation. Are we done discussing it?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead and make a motion to recommend approval for item 5.2, review and consideration recommendation of the City Council regarding amendment to Harriman City Commercial Zoning Code 10-3-6. Blah, 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 blah. The rest of that. With the one update of changing that from 8 to 5, so that could approve signage on those few lots.
Do you want a second or you want me to?
Oh, I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Preston and a second by Jackson, and let's do a roll call. Preston?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Heather?
No.
And Jackson?
Yes.
All right, so that's 4-1. So that passes. Let's go back to item 4.1, presentation and review of the Harriman City.
I'll make a motion to move back to 4.1.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Today we're providing just an overview of the report that was submitted back in August, summarizing the actions and implementation steps that Harriman's taken over the past year regarding moderate income housing. So the moderate income housing plan has a requirement to annually report on the 5-year implementation plan that is part of Harriman's plan. So today we'll just do a quick overview of the key components that are in Harriman's current moderate income housing plan, the state code requirements, what's included in that annual report, and then do a summary of where we are right now with housing in Harriman in regard to moderate income housing. Then we also just want to discuss and provide the options for some new strategies. The state has added, since Harriman adopted the moderate income housing plan, and then just bring it up for next steps and any questions and discussions. So Harriman originally adopted an updated moderate income housing plan in 2019. It was part of our general plan update process, so we started off by creating that new moderate income housing plan to respond to some of the updated state requirements. In 2022, the state revised those requirements with the 5-year implementation plan and the annual reporting. So at that time, we went back and just basically modified and reformatted Harriman's moderate income housing plan to be set up for that annual reporting. And that was adopted in, I think, September of 2022 and submitted on time for the state's requirements that year. At the time, Harriman was one of only about 25% of cities met that initial deadline. So you guys are already ahead of the game and just a leader in this whole effort statewide for moderate income housing. The plan contains one overall goal, similar to other elements of the general plan. There's 6 strategies out of the ones identified by the state for inclusion in moderate income housing plans, and then 6 action items that Harriman has identified that implement one or more of those state strategies. For year 3, where we are right now, the 2024 to 2025 year, there's 8 different benchmarks that we reported on regarding progress towards moderate income housing. So compliance with the Utah State Code, they have identified these shared strategies that cities need to select the ones that best fit their context and report on implementation towards those over a 5-year time period. So these are the 6 strategies that Harriman has been working towards since 2022. Of course, we know that Harriman's been working towards moderate income housing for much longer than that. And part of the reporting is being able to show how the actions that have taken place over the past year are built on sort of this long-term endeavor towards housing over the past 10 to 20 years in housing in Harriman regarding housing. So strategy A is rezoning for densities. Strategy B is focused on infrastructure investments. Strategy E, the focus is on accessory dwelling units. Strategy F, the focus is on bringing housing into those commercial or mixed-use zones and near major transit investment corridors. Strategy G is focused more on amending your land use regulations to support moderate income housing. And then strategy K is focused on preserving existing as well as new moderate income housing through different initiatives such as deed restrictions, and then also just maintaining an understanding of the current subsidized housing units in the city. So with the implementation reporting, it is from August 1st of the previous year to July 31st, and then you generously get one extra day to submit the report on that previous year. So it's something that we work on mostly through the month of June and July so that we're ready to submit by that August 1st deadline every year. The items that are included in the report are action reporting, so what has Harriman been doing with regard to the action items, and then also just discussing the different land use decisions that have been made. The state's also interested in knowing what barriers are out there to implementing and making housing, affordable housing happen in Harriman, and then understanding what the response by the market has been over the past year. How many units, what types of units have been built and where. They also have been asking for information on accessory dwelling units. It's been a popular strategy statewide. There were some changes to state code to make cities allow internal ADUs in their residential zones. And so most cities have chosen that as a strategy to report on. And then there's also been interest in understanding the number of entitled units that each city has, whether it's through a development agreement or the base zoning. So that's everything that goes into the report. And now we just want to walk through Harriman's accomplishments and action item reporting. So we're going to talk a little bit about the state of housing in Harriman, and it's structured in this report and the summary report by the action items, which is the framework for Harriman's moderate income housing plan. So each action item supports one or more strategies. The first one is to ensure that zoning designations allow for either higher density or moderate income housing development near your mixed-use center. So the town center, near the Salt Lake Community College campus, and adjacent to commercial and employment centers. This one works towards 3 different strategies. And so as we're reporting, we have to sometimes be a little bit repetitive in the reporting format because it's by strategy. And so we've just worked out a way to show how these different action items are supporting each strategy in slightly different ways. This is the benchmark timeline. So for this first action item, there was 3 different benchmarks. The first 2 were addressed in years 1 and 2 and are complete. And then as you can see from here on out, and this is true for this action item as well as the others, that we are in sort of that home stretch for the benchmarks. So these are things that will be ongoing actions and benchmarks that we'll be reporting on for years 4 and 5 as well. So initiating the rezonings for densities that are necessary to facilitate that production of moderate income housing in areas that were identified according to prioritization by the city in those previous benchmarks. So what did Harriman do over the past year? So we know that in conjunction with some of the amendments to master development agreements that Harriman approved the rezoning of several areas, especially in the southeast section of the city, that supported an increased density of residential development. This rezoning allows for some smaller lot single-family, attached single-family, and multifamily apartment dwellings. Harriman has also been working on a process to create two new small lot, single-family residential zones, so the R15 and the R18. This is an ongoing effort. City staff has been working on this over the past year, 2 years, and that's something that is coming back to the Planning Commission, I think, later this year. So we also know that Harriman's working on, approving smaller scale zoning requests citywide that show that they're consistent with the general plan and the future land use map. One of the things that we reported on last year and just reiterated that the changes to the A110 zone helps to integrate smaller lot sizes and increases the base density within that zone, which translates into the opportunity for those lots to incorporate different types of housing. Our second action item is targeted towards encouraging planned unit developments in neighborhoods with the idea of supporting an integration of smaller lot sizes and offering a mix of housing options within the same neighborhood. So there's a few PUD areas in Harriman, and the idea is that instead of just a standard lot size for one neighborhood, that there can be a combination of small, medium, and large, and this works to implement that strategy A regarding rezoning. So we're in the fourth benchmark for action item 2, which is also updating residential zones for allowing that integration of small lot sizes. So we talked a little bit about the small lot residential zones that are in process, but a key aspect of Harriman's plan development overlay is that ability to mix the lot sizes. And we know that city staff has been evaluating options for updating this overlay, trying to make it a little bit more feasible for smaller scale development outside of those master development agreements. The minimum acreage of 15 acres, looking to perhaps reduce that would make it more accessible to a broader range of development efforts. The third action item is focused on infrastructure investments. With the moderate income housing plan, we chose to focus that action item on the rehabilitation or expansion of active transportation infrastructure to facilitate construction of moderate income housing and making sure that that moderate income housing has multiple modes of transportation and connection to both local and regional amenities and opportunities. This implements that strategy B. And there's 2 benchmarks that are identified in year 3 and moving forward. We also reported on these last year, and it's primarily focused on coordinating and prioritizing the funding of active transportation projects that connect the housing with regional transportation, and then initiating that rehabilitation in priority areas as identified in the city's active transportation plan. So we know the city's been busy doing a lot of work on Main Street, the Midas Creek Trail. What we reported on this year is just that continued work on restriping and updating roadways to add bike lanes, make sure that the sidewalks are there, and working to have that expanded active transportation network citywide. The upgrades were completed on Main Street, which was one of those high priority projects. There's that planned widening and improvements to 6,000 West, and also what we reported on was the approval of the public infrastructure districts for the future Panorama and South Hills developments. Our fourth action item is focused on allowing detached accessory dwelling units in the right residential neighborhoods, and then tracking both internal and attached ADUs as well as detached ADUs. This implements that strategy E, and in this third year moving forward, we are at that fourth benchmark, which is to prioritize and begin updating regulations to allow detached ADUs that meet the city's criteria. This is a process that was started last year, so we reported, you guys were a little bit of ahead of the game, and we reported on the progress last year as well. We know that the city's working to establish best practices for detached ADUs in Harriman City. And right now, the plan is to regulate and allow for those based on lot size rather than limit it to just specific residential zones. City staff has been working hard, and the work is in progress to find that right fit for Harriman City, and it's an active application that's being coordinated with several city departments to understand the utility requirements, impact fees, and the building permit process. The fifth action item is focused on allowing for multifamily or townhome development as buffers between commercial and single-family residential areas, as well as in areas such as the Harriman Town Center and near those major transit investment corridors that are identified in the regional plan. It implements both strategies F and G. And with year 3, the benchmark is the third one, to initiate that rezoning for a mix of housing, including multifamily and townhomes in areas that are identified for priority areas. And most of that is in those major transit investment corridors, as well as the Harriman Town Center. So similar to some of the earlier action items, that this year we reported on prioritizing the location of mixed-use development, multifamily, attached single-family, and small-at single-family in areas of Harriman that are near major transit investment corridors or corridor preservation areas, but also as buffers to some of your commercial areas, such as the town center, the community college campus near Mountain View Corridor, as well as other areas with guidance from the general plan. So we know that Harriman approved the rezoning of several hundred acres in that southeast corner of the city back in November. This involved also some of that rezoning of vertical mixed use into multifamily, as well as shifting the zoning of some areas that were still under an agricultural zone or a larger lot single family to allow a mix of housing types. In December, Harriman also approved that amendment to the Harriman Town Center MDA to include up to 300 residential units in that commercial section of the Harriman Town Center Commons area. So previously that was earmarked only for commercial, but negotiating for some residential development, and we'll talk a little bit about it in the last action item as well. With the effort to create the Southwest Athletic Complex, there were some amendments to both Teton Ranch and Olympia that included sort of converting some previously dedicated open space areas to housing in exchange for some of that land for the athletic complex. So our last action item that we reported on this year was regarding establishing a housing task force to facilitate preservation and creation of attainable housing for moderate income households. This implements Strategy K. It's got several different benchmarks, and most of these are ones that are being reported on every year. And there's 3 of them that focus on both monitoring the moderate income housing options in Harriman, their proportion to overall housing and residential development, monitoring those LIHTC housing projects and understanding and making sure that the city's aware of the expiration timing of those subsidized areas, and then prioritizing and establishing programs to preserve existing and new moderate income housing and subsidized units. With this one, the Housing Task Force that was originated and organized by Mayor Palmer continues to work on strategies and pursuing opportunities for preserving and creating attainable workforce housing options. The idea is to aim it at educators, first responders, entry-level city employees, and the main goal is to create and maintain deed-restricted housing that helps provide and preserve housing for those that serve the community. So that's an ongoing effort. And regarding the monitoring of housing, Harriman City keeps pretty close tabs on residential development and housing options using the data from building permits as well as the MDAs. So all of those entitled units, how many have been built, how many are remaining, and what's that proportion of multifamily to single family that provides a general framework for monitoring potential moderate income housing options in Harriman. While we know that not all of the multifamily or attached single family or even small at single family are currently affordable to moderate income households, that is sort of the best framework for potential options if the market cooperates. So the approximate split of 40% multifamily dwellings, which includes those attached single-family townhomes, to 60% single-family, represents the overall composition of dwelling units that are vested through the city's master development agreements. So it's tracking pretty close what's been built, what's entitled, and what was planned with these master development agreements for the last 20 years or so. There's just the one LIHTC project in Harriman City that has 288 units. The majority of those, 258, are set aside for low-income households. The initial compliance period for subsidizing those units ends in 2026, but there's an extended compliance period of 15 years as a minimum that ends in 2041. With the previous strategy and action item, we talked a little bit about those residential units in the new Harriman Town Center Commons area, and part of that negotiation by the Housing Task Force in the city was to include a minimum of 10% affordable units in that development. So the state asks to understand what the market response has been. In the past year, we reported on the building permits. And one of the things that we talk about is how many of these are in an MDA versus not an MDA, just to reflect the long-term strategies and efforts that Harriman has been doing with the master development agreements that it's been administering for quite a while. So 312 single-family dwellings, 265 of those are in master development agreement areas, 153 multifamily. Again, this would include the attached single-family townhome. Nearly all of those, 150, are in an MDA. With condos, there was 50, and they were all included in MDA, and then one accessory dwelling unit that was issued a permit and completed. We also, did you have an item to add?
So certificate of occupancy are only required for a new construction, correct? If it's an existing single-family home and they're asking for an existing basement space to convert it to an internal ADU, we don't require the certificate of occupancy to be issued. So it's kind of a technicality. We actually issued, I can't remember what the number was. It was like 20.
For the ADUs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this next slide talks
Okay,
about.
okay, yeah. So we issued more, so that's a little bit.
There was more permits issued for ADUs, but most of them were within existing homes. So the state asks cities to track ADUs through one of, I think, 3 or 4 different ways. Harriman primarily tracks the ADUs through that count of building permits issued. The total number over time since Harriman started tracking using building permits is 18. A lot more applicants have submitted, but those are either still in process for approval or they've been withdrawn. But interesting to note that in the past year, 15 permits were issued for adding an ADU to an existing home or a new home. So the entitled units gives the state an idea of what the potential is for future housing that hasn't yet pulled a permit. So entitled units, by the state's definition, are housing units that are legally allowed to be built in a city that haven't pulled a permit, but they could. And so that can be captured in a development agreement. We know that that's something that Harriman has been using for a long time. Not all cities do. Or it could just be through the current zoning, what's allowed in a residential zone that hasn't yet been built, or other mechanisms such as the overlay zone. So what's out there that hasn't yet been built, our estimates are through development agreements, and this primarily is Olympia, some of the amended South Hills and Panorama, that there's about 13,500 units that are still coming down the pipeline in the future when the market and the developers are ready to make that happen and the infrastructure is in place to support that development. Outside of the MDA areas with just the residential zoning or the mixed-use zoning, when you look at the vacant land and you subtract a percentage of that for infrastructure updates, such as roads, that there's potential for about 3,000 to 3,500 additional units in your residential-based zones that are not included in a development agreement. With the overlay zone that is available citywide for an increase in density based on certain conditions, that could potentially add an additional 886 units. And then for the last item, the state asks to understand how many units have will serve letters, have the roads, have the sewer, all the utilities in place, infrastructure ready units. Harriman's at about 278 with the number of units that could be built tomorrow and could go down and pull a permit from the city.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
Can we go back one slide? So on the residential where it's like use zone, so for example, if we have an A1, right, it's like one house per acre. That's just counting as one, right? It's not
Correct.
saying like, hey, this is 5 acres, this could be subdivided into a subdivision with
Right.
quarter-acre lots. Okay.
Yeah, so what we do is the city's GIS department, runs a tally of all the vacant land and then how much of that vacant land is in each zone. And so if there's, 50 acres in the A1 zone, that's 50 units, but we then subtract about 20% for roads that would need to go in to develop that for housing. So we just did that citywide, and some of that includes the mixed-use zoning that's down in that little southeast tail of the city on the other side, and then there's just little pockets here and there that might currently be adjacent to other housing, but could include additional housing. So
Yeah, thank you. I was just like, the number seemed really low, but that makes sense.
yeah. So, okay. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, so that's the quick summary, the non-15-page written summary of everything that we submitted to the state. And just a quick note about the timing on that. Reports were due August 1st, and then the state takes time to review every city and county's reports. They have 90 days to review those reports and then come back with their recommendation regarding the completeness of that report, if it meets the state's requirements as far as, are you reporting on all of the things that you should be reporting on based on what's in your implementation plan and your 5-year plan. So we've had good luck in the past 2 years. We try to reiterate not just what Harriman has been doing in the past year, but has been setting the foundation for the things that have been able to happen in the last year. And so we'll look for that report. If for some reason there is feedback that the reporting needs more detail, you do have a period to respond to and update your report before the state would consider you non-compliant. So there's avenues for making those updates, but we're hoping that it gets the green light that we have gotten in the past 2 years. So in the past year or so, the state has added some additional strategies since we worked on the moderate income housing plan and updated it back in 2022. There were 24 or 25 strategies, and now there are 5 additional strategies that have been included for cities to consider. They are primarily focused on promoting affordable home ownership, and these are things that Harriman City could consider making another amendment to the plan if you felt like some of these strategies were a better fit for things that the city is working on or is interested in working on. So there's a home ownership promotion zone, a first home investment zone, or approving projects that receive funding from the Utah Homes Investment Program, or looking at things like adopting home ownership density bonuses for single family or home ownership density bonus for multifamily. So those are the strategies that are out there. that the city could consider either swapping out one of the strategies that's currently in there or adding new strategies, and just providing a little bit more opportunity to essentially report on the initiatives that the city has been taking, rather than this is a new direction. It could be these are things that we've already been doing, and we feel like these strategies might be a good fit for the direction Harriman has been heading.
I have a question. What is the Utah Homes Investment Program?
So that's a statewide program. It was initiated, I think, just in the last year. I don't have a lot of details about it, but it's intended to provide funding, I think, towards down payments or just reducing those barriers to owning homes for lower and moderate income families.
Is this the zone that becomes eligible for some of those grant programs?
Yeah.
Was it like the
from state?
20,000? I think it was like $20,000 for first-time home buyers or something.
Yeah.
So would that be those first two zones would be eligible for the grants? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the idea, is that you create different mechanisms so that homes or development within these zones have the opportunity to apply for and receive funding that the state has set aside for affordable home ownership.
It's like a grant that you pay off when you sell it.
Yeah.
It's like a $20,000 credit, basically,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Okay. So next steps, as we reviewed with the action reporting, the actions that we reported on this year would be the same actions that we would report on for the next 2 years. So year 4 and year 5, based on the implementation plan that was adopted and approved by the state, it's essentially continuing to report on those same types of things, what the city's been doing with rezoning, with infrastructure improvements, with accessory dwelling units, and things that the Housing Task Force is working on to support monitoring and stabilization of new and existing moderate income housing units. I think the other thing to consider, the reporting, if you were to amend the plan, you wanted to add a new strategy or change a strategy, it doesn't completely reset the clock back to year 0. You would essentially keep on reporting on strategies that have already been in place that you still want to keep. So you would report on those, but then you would report on the new strategies as a first-year report, which is a little bit different than the follow-up reports.
So does it make it harder for the city if we were to add more of those?
It just makes it a little, there's just a little bit more information that needs to be provided.
And we're not under any requirement to add to it. Those were just suggested strategies that we could consider, right?
Exactly. It's just things to consider if you feel like they might be a good fit for things the city is already doing. There's also, 19 strategies that are already in state code that you could look at again as well, and think about whether or not they might be a better fit for the things that are happening that you've been seeing, trends and shifts in the market, and knowing what has been coming to you as a planning commission and what you might expect to come in the next year or two, if there's things that might be a better fit for just showing how Harriman is working towards this overall goal of moderate income housing.
The feedback I've been hearing is, now that we're in kind of the 3rd year of this reporting cycle, is that other cities are getting more requests for additional information this year than they had in the previous 2 cycles. So it's possible if we receive that request, it's possible we could satisfy the requirement by just simply providing more detailed information.
Mm-hmm.
Or it may require us to identify one of the other strategies that is more maybe applicable to our current condition or market opportunities to facilitate or encourage affordable housing in our community. So we may need to make an adjustment, but right now we don't. Another thing we've been hearing, the Utah Leagues of Cities and Town has been meeting, I think it's every few weeks, you know, as they prepare for, there was supposed to be an interim session, but obviously the next legislative session is just a few months away. And we've been hearing they're exploring making some changes to this whole program. So we may have new legislation, you know, next year sometime that might require us to change this again anyway. So I think there's probably a good chance at this point in time we're going to be looking at amendments.
Yeah, there will probably be some new information that comes out. And the other thing, and I brought this one back up specifically because what we've been hearing from other cities is that if you show that you've essentially completed all of your benchmarks ahead of time, that the state considers that strategy to be complete, and then you need to have at a minimum number of active strategies. And the other thing to note is that there's a minimum number, which is 3, to be in compliance. But then if you do 5 or more strategy, you are eligible for priority consideration for the transportation funding. And so that's one of the reasons that we have the 6 strategies, because that has made Harriman eligible for that priority consideration for transportation and road investment funds. And so it's something to just consider that, you know, there might be another strategy that can be on deck to replace strategy E regarding ADUs, if that's something that is implemented. And, you know, we're also hearing that's an area where, you know, the state may make another push regarding detached ADUs, that if cities don't have that in place, that they may need to have that in place over the next year.
I was just going to say, I know a lot of these, you know, all this stuff is words, but I feel like Harriman actually has been working actively on these items, where we're trying to add new zones for smaller homes on smaller lots. Interior ADUs I think are amazing, because it just like reduces the entry or the cost of housing to just use your home that's already there in a better way with multiple dwellings within a home. I think detached ADUs, I'm for it for sure, because it's somewhat using the existing infrastructure that's already there. So typically, you know, the cost is hopefully lower to do another dwelling unit on your property since you already have a primary dwelling. So since I've been on the Planning Commission, I think we've actually done a pretty good job implementing these.
So earlier in your report, you had mentioned the mitigation fund. What was that?
Sorry, could you say that again, Andrea?
Oh, sorry. At the beginning of your report, you mentioned a mitigation fund. Do you remember what that is?
Mitigation fund. Let's see. I think that was in Strategy K. Okay. Get back to the beginning. So Strategy K offers, or the intent is to preserve existing as well as new moderate income housing plans or units, and it offers, you know, a few different options for doing that. The landlord incentive program, deed restricted units using a grant program, or establishing a housing loss mitigation fund. As far as I know, that's not something that Harriman currently has in place. And the other thing that we've talked about, and there's not a specific place to report this, but the the funding, the housing set-aside fund that the city gets from its redevelopment areas, that thus far that amount of funding has not been large enough to provide, incentives for it to be appealing for developers to incorporate subsidized units or lower income units.
This may also be referencing, Salt Lake City is the only city that I know of that has done this, but if someone voluntarily chooses to essentially demolish or remove a home out of, from essentially the housing stock, there is a fee that is associated with that. The city collects that fee and puts it into this housing loss mitigation fund, and then they can use that money towards, like affordable housing or something like that. So it was kind of a way of not necessarily telling people that they can't take down a home and then maybe convert that to a non-residential land use, but there would be some kind of financial impact, a fee associated with that, right? Because they really want to preserve housing stock. That's a long-held strategy that Salt Lake City has had. So I don't know of other cities who have done that.
Yeah, I don't think it's very commonly used in Utah right now.
I went to several meetings for the Transportation Committee for Wasatch Front Regional Council, and one of the things I kept trying to bring up is, like, we've dedicated a corridor for tracks, right, to go through our city, and it's just like, well, it would be nice to tell developers we know within a certain amount of time, call it 10 years, I don't care, that we know we're going to have that type of transportation available to incentivize developers to want to develop next to TODs, right? Because I'm like, transportation is a major cost. I can't remember what the percentage is. It's 10%, I don't know, 15% of your living expenses is transportation.
Right.
And so I was kind of like challenging UTA to like give the cities more structure of what they can plan on, like where it's actually going to go, not just like, oh, we might do it or might not.
Right.
Because I'm like, that would help with this initiative of moderate income housing.
And that is one of the things that we have mentioned as far as barriers encountered. So starting in year one of this reporting, for each of the action items and strategies that relate to investing and rezoning and amending land use regulations for areas in transit investment corridors, just mentioning that Harriman has been working towards building that transit-oriented development, but until the transit is actually built, it's not realizing its full potential or achieving the original intent of those areas, because you're right that the housing plus transportation costs are the complete picture for families, and especially moderate income housing families. If they can remove or lower that transportation cost by being in one of those units, then that makes that unit more affordable because they know that their transportation costs are reduced if they're able to easily access a regional transit option.
Does the moderate income go up every year?
So the moderate income for planning purposes is the county's moderate income housing, the county's annual median household income. So it has been rising, but housing costs have been rising higher and faster. And so it's obviously not just a Harriman issue or a county issue. It's been an issue statewide. That is one of the other barriers that we talk about, that the market response, higher interest rates, all of these things are contributing to making units that were intended to be affordable and geared towards moderate income households. It's pushing them out of reach. And those are things that are out of the city's control. you've been working on, trying to create this framework to support a mix of housing and housing diversity citywide, that the market is playing a role in, preventing some of that from coming to fruition. And the other barrier and market response that we've noted is the trend to build larger homes on smaller lots instead of smaller homes on smaller lots. And that makes those smaller lots less affordable than if the homes were built that were more of the starter home or the bungalow that you historically would see on some of those smaller lots. Okay. Did you want to add anything else, Michael?
No, pulling together this report is a lot of work. It's a lot of data points, and it's difficult because we also need to summarize it and make it readable. And so, yeah, we're just anxious to see the state's response to our report this year.
Yeah, and I think once we do get that information back, that's an update that Michael can give you. And what we've done each year, and we're in the process of doing right now, is to make a more user-friendly, readable summary report of all of the information that was provided. So this is sort of that overview, but we'll be putting that into the same format as the Moderate Income Housing Plan and the reports that we've done the previous 2 years. So that's just an extra tool that the city felt was important to do, so that the average person or resident, planning commissioner, city council could see, without reading through all of the very wordy and maybe not easy to navigate state report, that summary report would provide a good perspective of what the city was doing and how they responded to the state.
This was great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thank you for being flexible with the agenda. And we will be back again to talk about water use and urban forests. So there's a lot going on over the next couple of months. So thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. So Chair and Commission comments. I just wanted to say thank you to Sheldon and good luck in your future endeavors.
Good luck.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sheldon.
Thank you.
It's been so
Thanks
fun
for all your work.
seeing you from the beginning of like code enforcement and then moving into this role. It's been fun to see you grow, and you've been so incredible, and I'm so grateful to have been able to work with you. So thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. And yeah, I'd like to just express my appreciation to have the ability to work alongside the commission and help shaping, Harriman City. And Harriman, they are fortunate to have a commission who is, willing to find that balance between the residents, the community, and the city, And again, I'm appreciative of staff and the opportunities that Harriman City provided, with offering me this opportunity to work here. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've already warned Sheldon, I believe in phoning a friend. Like,
Yeah.
hello, Sheldon, what do we do?
He's gonna change his number.
Yeah.
I have one thing, and I don't know how to approach it, but it often drives me insane. So, I'm not patient. Is there a way that we could talk to developers? Most of the time we have developers and proposals that they're to the point, they move along. But sometimes we have things that I find it really odd that we give residents only 3 minutes, but we give developers unlimited time.
I agree, and I was thinking the same thing today, Adam.
Just related to we've seen the proposal 400 times. We just needed to get to the stealth discussion. I get it, and I totally understand it. And I notice a lot when it's an attorney-driven thing, and this is no pun towards attorneys. But, Mike, I really think we need to figure out a way to be more productive. Either A, we need to give our residents more time, we cut you off, and you actually were giving us useful information. But we give the open mic to the developer for their presentation, and often it's not productive, it's just long.
It's not new information.
And I feel like if I was a resident sitting out there, I would have been pissed that they only got 3 minutes and that guy got to ramble forever. I'm just saying, I think, and that was for a point set, like, it was a teeny little thing, like, we got to think of something, because sometimes it just seems like we're wasting everyone's time to get to the point.
Go ahead.
In Ogden, chair, I think the chair has that ability to say, you know, we appreciate
Get to the point.
You got 3 more minutes.
And I just wonder, like, in an initial presentation, I mean, it's totally different than like this report and study, like, that's different. But when it's a development that is, now I would understand if it was a 4,000 acre development, maybe we need to take half an hour. But we weren't even going through models. We weren't, I wonder if there's like a way to say, you know what, you need to be kind of prepared to be done in 15 minutes.
Maybe we'll take the first crack. We could meet Andrea together and just talk about this and figure out how we can manage the meeting a little bit differently. And if we need to, we could even amend our policy or, we'll work on that.
Yeah, it's just something that I really think we owe more to our residents than we do to the developers, and it seems like we often do it backwards.
Well, he's telling us how we have cell phones and we need our cell phones and stuff. We're like, yeah, we get it. Yep.
I think another thing that's important to add, I've been doing some research in the background about adding an option for public comment similar to how council does, where they have a moment for public comment that's either about agenda items or not about agenda items, kind of at the beginning. And I talked to, I believe Bluffdale is the only one around us who does this, but they have gotten some pretty good comments out of it. So if that's something that you're interested in, it doesn't solve what you're talking about, but it is something that we're like concurrently working on.
I support that as
Getting
well.
more resident input.
I think we need more resident input
Yeah.
and more to the point on business. That's all I'm trying to say. That was
Well, and I think most developers, just this one particular one, kept reiterating the same issue again and again about how he didn't want a stealth.
Yeah.
Sometimes at city council, we hear a resident will come and address really a land use issue, but they don't have another kind of public forum to raise that issue.
Yeah.
So if we had kind of that open portion at the beginning of the meeting, at least it would be a venue where you could make that an option.
Also, it is currently available on our website, so maybe during our next meeting, because I don't know that a ton of stuff is going to change within the next 2 weeks as far as this policy and stuff goes, but we can remind people that they do have access to give any land use comments or comments specifically about the agenda on our website. It's in the same place. You just check a box for about this or not about this, but making sure people know that's available while we work through everything else.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next city council meeting will be September 24th. The next planning commission meeting will be October 1st, and then another council meeting on October 8th. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So Adam and Heather second. We're adjourned.